Therefore, we are getting started. We are doing Greenbook this week, and Greenbook is really Texas's own form of citation. So if you practice law in Texas, if you live in Texas, if you're licensed in Texas, Texas courts are going to expect you to cite to the Greenbook. So what's important? What's important to know is that we're going to cover every aspect of Greenbook. Part one will be by Professor, I think, Professor Collins. You didn't want part one for me. Well, part one will cover the basics of how the book is structured and what citing to the different courts. And part two will actually go into more detail of court decisions and how it's supposed to be grammatically typed and written for your citation. Remember, as far as LP is concerned, you will be citing to the Greenbook for your writing assignment 2. If your professors are avidly grading for writing assignment 1, they dealt with Bluebook, but for writing assignment 2, your professors will expect you to be citing to the Greenbook. And without further ado, I want to introduce Professor Lynette Collins, who also is our reference librarian, and Professor Monique Bailey, who is our learning resource librarian, and they will be presented for you today. You remember, you don't have to put in the group chat your information. This is going to fill up the chat up with 100-some responses. What we need you to do, though, is to definitely make sure your camera is on so your professor can see you for today's purposes, and then the individual professors will put in they'll let you know when they're finished taking it. Thank you so much. And I turn it over to Professor.
Okay, Professor Bailey is going to do part 1, and I'm going to do part 2. But before we move on, I want to call your attention to the green bar on the side of this slide. I know everyone is not from Texas, and so remember, in section BT2 of the Bluebook, they have listed in there whether or not your jurisdiction has a style guide. So if you're not from Texas, you want to follow the local rules. So we're going to follow, since we're in Texas, we're going to cite according to the Greenbook. But if you live in some other state, when you go back home, you need to see if your state has a style guide for citing. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Monique, to Professor Bailey. I'm sorry. Okay.
No worries. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start. This is called the Greenbook Part 1, Texas Court Structure, Petition, Writ, and Subsequent History. And here on this slide, what I want to point out is that we have what we call a bifurcated system. Don't forget that your 2 top courts are at the highest level of appeal. You have 1 civil, 1 criminal. Each of these is going to have 9 justices. With the Supreme Court, they cover the civil and the juvenile matters. With the Court of Criminal Appeals, of course, they cover all the criminal matters. One fun fact is that any criminal cases involving the death penalty automatically skip the intermediate Court of Appeals that you see and go straight to the highest court. So remember that. That'll be important. Notice that number 2, the Supreme Court's number 1 is for civil appeals and number 1 is for criminal appeals. Okay, I said that part. These slides will try to be precise in using the terms petition history and subsequent history, but know that a lot of sources use them interchangeably. Petition, writ, and subsequent history. Currently, after a decision by the Texas Courts of Appeal, parties can petition either Texas Supreme Court, TEX, or Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, tex.crim.app. for review of a decision. Whether they do so and what the higher court does with it is what the petition of writ history is all about. Pause right there for a second. With the Texas Court of Appeal, remember that's the intermediate level, okay? And then we're getting ready to explore in a minute the activity that comes after that. Next slide. So with the Texas court structure, you'll see that the yellow arrows will show you where you're going to add this. First, we're talking about the petition and writ history, which is for the intermediate level. And then when we talk about subsequent history, you should automatically lock it in that we're talking about the highest courts in the state of Texas. Okay. Next slide. This one says petition and writ history. Remember, the highest courts hear an appeal. Whether the highest courts hear an appeal is completely up to them. Petition and writ history is only used with cases from the Texas Court of Appeal. You always include the petition or writ history unless it is superseded or replaced by subsequent history. Petition or writ history goes inside the first parenthetical after the date and a comma. Depending on the date of your case and the court to which any appeal, petition, or writ would have been filed, select the appropriate abbreviation from appendices D through F. Now, I do want to say, I put it in the chat, but at the end, stay tuned. I'm going to show you where to highlight in your green book so that you can find this easily. Okay, and don't switch yet. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. What you'll learn is that after September 1st, 1997, it was a turning point. Before that, it was called writ history. After that, it's called petition history. So if you tend to see both of those names, that should be an indication that your case is older or not. Next slide, please. Petition versus writ history. Writ is an old word in the law meaning command from the sovereign or the courts. Here it is short for writ of error and is used as the way to appeal. Petition versus writ history. For the Texas Court of Appeals before September 1st, 1997 is writ history. Greenbook Appendix E, September 1st, 1997 to the present is called petition history. That's Appendix D. There's a lot of good information back there in appendices, so please look back there. Know the difference between no pet H, an appeal has not been filed but still has time, 45 days, and no pet, an appeal has not been filed and the time has expired. It's too late to file. For appeals to the Court of Criminal Appeals, petition history only, Appendix F. All right, what is subsequent history? Denials of certiorari by SCOTUS should be omitted for opinions over 2 years old. See Greenbook Rules 2.2, 3.2, and 4.6. Subsequent history is a decision made about your case by another, usually higher court, compared to the request for review that is the petition or writ history. In Texas, subsequent history includes dispositions from the Supreme Court of the United States when the appeals are made from Texas Supreme Court and Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. The subsequent history also includes the disposition of a case when the Texas Supreme Court or the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals decides to hear a Texas Court of Appeals case. And now we'll pass it over to Professor Collins.
Okay, the Green Book Part 2, citing Texas cases. Okay. Okay, remember, when you're in Texas and you're citing in Texas, you always need to check the Green Book. And the Green Book is a supplement to the Blue Book. Remember, when it comes to case names, all the rules for case names are found in the Blue Book. So anything having to do with case names and abbreviations and a lot of that is all going to be in the Blue Book. So you're going to use your Green Book in conjunction with your Blue Book. So when you're citing in Texas, you will need to have them right next to you, side by side. And so the Green Book it's only for practitioners in Texas. There's no law review format. So if you're citing for law review, you do not need the Green Book. You only need the Blue Book. And it's written by Texas Law Review. Okay. Okay, remember, if there's a conflict between the Green Book and the Blue Book, the Green Book preempts the Blue Book. Just as an aside, one of the things where the Blue Book and the Green Book are different is that when you're citing state statutes, the Blue Book says you have to put the date for your state statute. But the Green Book says in Texas, when you're citing Texas statutes, you don't need to put the date anymore. So in that context, you would follow the Green Book and not the Blue Book, because if you're citing in Texas. Okay. All right, these are changes. Let's see. A new Greenbook is probably going to come out in the next maybe 2 years. I haven't heard that they're doing it yet, so it might still be 2 years away. But I want to warn you, a new Bluebook is coming out this summer. So you're all 1Ls. So I just want you to know that this summer, probably in May or June, a new edition of the Bluebook is coming out. Okay. Okay. Greenbook organization. So the chapters that you'll be looking at the most are you'll probably look at chapter 4 the most for courts of appeals. Because that has the writ or petition history. So you'll be looking at chapter 4 the most, but chapter 2 is the Texas Supreme Court. Chapter 3 is the Texas Court of Appeals. And the other remaining chapters, so the Greenbook has chapters on trial courts, constitutions, statutes. It even has a chapter on books. And you'll have to check that chapter because we do have homework. Your LP teachers asked us to prepare homework. And one of the homework questions is on books. So you will have to check that chapter. And we are not covering that chapter in this PowerPoint. So inside the front cover of the Greenbook, it's similar to the front and back cover of the Bluebook. It's a chapter by chapter synopsis, which the Bluebook covers as well. And it also gives citing examples. So you can be sure to look in the inside front cover. And inside the back cover is a list of the writ and petition designations. They use the abbreviations, but it's handy when you need an abbreviation. Okay, so this is our 2 citation structures. Okay, this is a citation. No, this is citation structure which you're used to. This is straight out of the Bluebook. So it's from Tennessee. And it's straight. So if you're ever citing a case from any one of the other 49 states, you're just going to go straight by the Bluebook. But now we're in Texas. And okay, so this is how a citation in Texas looks. So what the difference is after the page number in your book in green, you're going to put the petition or writ history. So here it tells us immediately that this is a Texas Court of Appeals case. And in Court of Appeals cases, you always have to add the writ or petition history. So here is our writ or petition history. It tells us that when we have different districts, and our districts are listed by the name of the city. So it tells us that this case was appealed. The case was appealed in 2006. It was appealed in Waco, that's the district. And it tells us that what the Supreme Court did with the case, what the Texas Supreme Court did with the case is they denied the petition. And it's just like any other case. You can normally look at a case, and if it is State v. Jones, then you know it's a criminal case, and so it'll be appealed to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Whereas if it's just two private parties or a party that is or a party that's an institutional party, then it'll be the Texas Court of Appeals. Now, in this second case, in the Department of Public Safety versus Chad, you'll notice that this case has petition or writ history and subsequent history. So the petition or writ history tells you that it was appealed to the Texas Court of Appeals in Houston, and then it tells you that this case was reversed. So whenever you look up the original case in the on Lexis or Westlaw, it's going to have that big triangular, the big red triangle. It's going to have a big red signal because it was reversed. So basically, unless you're specifically citing this Court of Appeals case for something, you would not use that citation for anything because it's been reversed. So you would actually use the 1985 one. You'd actually use the citation from 1985 because that prior case was reversed. But you may have an instance where you need to cite a case that was reversed. So, and this is a case that has subsequent and writ history. It has both. This is just a slide on how you abbreviate all the different courts. And remember, Texas is very specific. They do not, between the court designation and the name of the city is a long dash. It's called an M dash. And on the side, I tell you how to make an M dash in Word. And if you do not have the M dash between the Texas Appeals abbreviation and the name of the city, then your citation is wrong. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions on specific citing in Texas, if you just open your Greenbook and you are lost, you can feel free to come and find me or Professor Bailey in the library. We're here like every day. So if you have any question, or if you just are lost, even if you're lost on the Bluebook, feel free to come and ask us citation questions at any time, because we do not expect you to know how to do everything. We don't expect you to know how to use the books. And when it comes to using the books, the only way you're going to actually learn to use your Greenbook and your Bluebook is you have to open them, and you have to read them and look at them and try to cite cases using them. Other than that, you will never learn how to use it, and it really is a skill you need to learn in law school. Okay, this is citing the Texas Supreme Court and Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. This is just some examples of how to cite. There we go. And it was different before 1962 and after 1962. Here's the Texas citing the Texas Court of Appeals. I seriously doubt if you will have to cite any cases before 1911. I seriously doubt it. Okay. These are the 14 Court of Appeals cities. So after the long M dash, you will list one of these cities. Now remember, Houston has 2 districts. We have the 1st district and the 14th district. So the 1st district used to sit in Galveston, but then they moved to Houston. And just so that all of you know, the legislature, I guess a year or 2 ago, they created a new court. So now we do not have 14 districts, we now have 15 districts. And the 15, I didn't add it to the slide, and the 15th district sits in Austin. And they also, so it's the 15th Court of Appeals. It'll be the 15th district. It sits in Austin, and there's already number 3 sitting in Austin. So I was unable to find how to cite it, but what I'm assuming is that after Austin, they'll put a 3rd district and also put a 15th district. So it'll be the same format that they use Houston, the 1st and 14th district. Now, this new Court of Appeals is a special Court of Appeals. They also, in Houston, the trial courts are called district courts. So that's like that's your trial court. Is most trial courts are district courts. They do have some others by another name. But what the legislature also did is they created a new set of district courts, and they only hear business litigation. So the business litigation is going to be in this special, and there's certain criteria to get into that district court, which I think sits in Austin as well. So then what this new 15th district covers, it covers appeals from that business court, from the business district court that sits in Austin. It also covers cases between business cases, like when one business is suing another business, and I think that it has to be they have to be suing over more than $15 million. So there's some cases that are just from regular district courts that you will appeal to the 15th district. And that is not in the Greenbook because they just started it. The court began sitting on September 1st. So it's not in the current Greenbook that we have. Okay, so this is how to cite subsequent history. Remember, subsequent history is decisions made when the higher court accepts your petition or writ. So it goes outside the parentheticals in italics. Okay, and if you notice the case at the bottom, the City of Houston v. Proler, it was affirmed, this case was affirmed in part and reversed in part. Okay, that's the subsequent history. Let's see. And remember, if it's over, if they appealed it to the Supreme Court and it's been more than 2 years, you do not have to put it down. Okay, so where do you find the petition or writ history? In this case, I like Lexis over Westlaw. The reason why I like Lexis for the petition or writ history is because it's right on the page. So at the top of the case, they list you the case, and so if you just keep looking, they'll give you the subsequent history right on this first page of the case. Now, for Westlaw, it does not list the writ or petition history or anything on that first page. You have to click on the history section of the key site tabs. So it's not on that first page in Westlaw. It's not on the first page. Okay. Typeface. So typeface for Texas case citations. Okay. Case names and procedural phrases are italicized. Jurisdictional info, written petition history on Roman typeface. Any subsequent history is italicized. I know you can't really, this case, certain things are italicized, but the font you can't really see. So Hamilton v. Rivers is of course italicized, and cert denied also is italicized. Okay, this is a checklist for Court of Appeals cases. You can read it and use it when you're citing a Court of Appeals case, but I'm not going to go through it now. It's merely a checklist. So you can use it when you have a Court of Appeals case. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Professor Bailey, and she's going to she copied certain pages from the Greenbook, and she's going to discuss them with you.
Before you go, Professor Collins, can you clarify when it says Roman typeface, is that Times New Roman? Is that what you're
No, it's just not italicized. That's what I mean. It's not italicized.
Okay.
It's in regular type. Okay.
All right. And just for those that need to know, when in doubt, make sure you also look at the local rules for the court. Sometimes they do have specifications on what font to use, the margins, things like that. So let's look at this. We're going to be looking at pages 20 through 27. Can you make it a little bit bigger on the screen?
I don't know how.
Okay, that's okay. Hold on. I'll turn to it on my own page. 20 through 27. You guys will be getting copies of this PowerPoint as well. But what I wanted to show you, 4.31 on the left-hand side, you'll see that these are the district numbers. You saw that in a slide, but I wanted to show you where it was in your book. And then on page 21, for the civil cases where it talks about the petition and writ history, that's the section for that. Now, there is something I wanted to point out. You'll notice at the bottom on the right-hand side, it talks about for more recent cases, you can check commercial databases, which would be Westlaw and Lexis, but you can also go to Texas Judicial Branch's website at www.texcourts.gov. And I felt that was helpful. The other highlights that you see are the Greenbook talking about where and how to find it when you're on Westlaw or when you're on Lexis, if you happen to forget and you don't have the PowerPoint in front of you that the slides showed from Professor Collins. Next slide. Okay, now on page 22, which will be on this left-hand side, you'll see that these are the forms of citation to describe the status of petition for review. And so you'll see the no pet H, no pet, petition filed, petition dismissed by agreement, and so forth. You're definitely going to want to highlight that section. Now, another thing, as you look at the left-hand side towards the bottom where it says practice tip, for the cases in the Supreme Court, you have 45-day window, but you're going to notice in a minute that for the ones in the criminal court, you're only going to have a 30-day window. So I wanted to make sure you understood that too. And you'll see that they also highlight Appendix F at the bottom on page 20. Oh, you went, go back.
Oh, go back.
Yeah,
Okay.
you skipped.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me go. Okay, so again, I'm sorry, y'all. Practice tip at the bottom, it says page 22. You see the 45 days, I highlighted that. That's the Texas Supreme Court. So those are your civil cases, your juvenile cases. All right. And then at the top, 4.4.2, now we're on page 23. Make sure you highlight that. That's the part before September 1st, 1997. And then in section 4.5 with the criminal cases, I highlighted rule 4.6. And then 4.6.1, you're going to need that so you know where to look at in the blue book. Remember, Professor Collins was saying you have to toggle between both. Next page, please. Now on this side is some more notations, and then this is where I was pointing out. I didn't want you to miss it when you look in your books, that for civil cases, juvenile 45-day window, but criminal cases 30-day window. Attention to detail is paramount. Okay, and then you'll notice on page 25, when it's talking about the subsequent history, they also note Blue Book Rule 10.7 and Table T8. All right. Next slide. Okay, you'll see I highlighted 4.6.2. And this is where you get into when do you replace the petition history, when do you add to it. So these pages are also very, very important. And this is where you'll find it. So subsequent history from the Supreme Court is going to be in addition to, and then other subsequent history, this is the part where it talks about over 2 years old. You just heard Professor Collins talk about that. And then the last thing I highlighted for you is on page 27, 472. And then it talks about when it must be included, subsequent opinion on the merits. So basically, just as a rule of thumb, anytime you have the Court of Appeals, which is the intermediate level, any activity after that is going to be converted into subsequent history. And then you want to double check your rules on if you fully replace the petition or a writ history or you add to it, because obviously there are some exceptions. So we thank you all for paying attention today. If you need us, Monique.Bailey@tsu.edu. And just like Professor Collins said, we're usually somewhere around. You can email me and schedule individualized session if you need help optimizing your schedule, or if you have some research things that you want to work through, I'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Okay, also, and last but not least, there is there's homework associated with this. You will find the homework on Blackboard. It's, I think, 11 questions. There's no time limit on the questions, except if you leave the page, you will not be able to come back. So you'll have to do all 11 questions at the same time. There's no time limit. So if you have accommodations, you can just spend however long you want on it. It should be opening sometime this morning by 10 o'clock. You'll have to find it on it's multiple choice. So you'll go ahead and you'll do it on Blackboard, and it closes on Thursday morning, I think around 9. So the 3 of us will be back on Thursday for another Zoom, and in that Zoom we will go over the homework. And if you have any questions after actually touching your Greenbook, if you have any questions, you can either come ask us in the library, or you can save the questions for the Thursday session. So we'll be back on Zoom on Thursday, and Professor Long, finish up for me if you need to tell them anything, if I'm forgetting something.
I needed to say something real quick.
Okay.
Just a sidebar. I've had multiple students coming to me about not feeling totally comfortable in both platforms for Lexis and Westlaw. So I just want to say this as a mass announcement. Get comfortable with both, because when you go into clerkships and older law firms, they tend to prefer Westlaw. And I am